Okay, so today I started a really cool project that will essentially be one of the core foundations of the nonverbal group, something I call Perception Engine. And this is something that's going to grow and develop and be so cool. And it's just cool to make a video discussing what it is and sort of the process that's going into developing it, so that when I actually finish it, I can go back and see this and sort of you can follow along the journey of this development, because you're going to hear me say the word perception engine over and over and over and over again. So essentially what it is one of the interesting things with doing research on nonverbal behavior is that, and something, a core tenet of the nonverbal group is we're not focused on meaning. So we don't really care what a specific piece of like a movement or an action means, because it's not really grounded in realities. There's a lot of body language advice or nonverbal communication advice that says, like, if somebody does this, that means Y, and it's not true. What really is true is perception is really what's driving the reality of meaning. So if someone is like crossing their arms, we don't know why they're crossing their arms, but what's more fascinating is how people perceive someone with their arms crossed. And I've always, I've looked at the research in terms of nonverbal behavior, specifically in psychology and a couple other cross disciplines, but like there is so much interesting research on perception. The problem is the perception research is often disconnected from the actual material or behavioral data. So let me give you an example. And what Perception Engine is sort of solving the gap for that. So right now, a lot of the perception studies are done on images. So you take a picture of somebody who's got like a face like this. They sit there and they're like, and you have other people rate aspects of this person. How intelligent do you think they are? How good of a communicator do you? All these different ways that you can test the perception of that actual image. Now, there's problems with images. Images, and I'll talk about this extensively in other videos, but like we don't perceive or we don't make a perception based on a 1/30th second frame of someone. We make a perception based on a lot more movement, a lot more conversation. You could start off really thinking someone is, not that intelligent, and then within 5 minutes, your worldview completely changes, and you're like, oh my God, this person's a genius. Like there's all these different compensations and factors that change with perception. So we want to do perception studies on video. Now, here's a really cool thing. What we'll essentially do, and what Perception Engine is when we're doing all of our research, we are having people go through something called a battery. We had people go through social first dates. We're going to have people go through presentations, all these things. We're going to collect this massive data set of video. And then we use artificial intelligence, or more specifically just like machine learning and really good coding practices to break down every single instance or frame of that and code it into something that's actual material behavior. So like every facial expression will be coded and analyzed, every movement, all of it is just existing in data. And then what we do is we use this thing called Perception Engine, which is basically a tool for very quickly scaling a study on perception. So I could take a video of someone and have thousands of people rate qualities of that video in different demographics, whatever I choose. Like I can focus on people who are between the ages of 25 and 35 and in the financial sector, and I could attack that demographic and have them rate certain qualities of the video. And then what's really cool is we have all this perception data, and then we have all this behavioral data, and we get to merge them and look for really cool themes. So we get to find things like, if somebody has a smile timing that is between 2 to 4 seconds, they are way more likely, or like a factor of 4x more likely to be perceived as comfortable than somebody with a smile timing of like 1 to 2 seconds. Like we can look at this across various cultures. We can look at this across various industries, ethnicities, culture. It's just like really, really, really cool. And it's something I've been wanting to do for such a long time, because I've seen like a lot of flaws with the research is it's not oriented towards perception enough that as it should be, or it's really good, but the behavioral data set's not as good. So when you have those two and you're running tons and tons and tons of studies through this, it's just really fascinating. And also, we're going to be able to provide this almost as like a service. So Perception Engine is going to drive our research, but it's also going to drive our core product. So if you want to, usually when you go to, let's call them an image consultant or a communication consultant, one of the big problems is you're really getting feedback that revolves around opinion. So you should act a certain way, you should move a certain way, you want to have a brand or a style that is representative of X, Y, and Z, but you're really at the mercy of the person that's giving you the advice, right? So for example, in public speaking, some people will talk about performative speaking, which is like very, it's almost like acting in a way where you're like, all right, so I want you to remember the three most, that's probably a bad way of showing what performative speaking it is, but it comes across as a little fake. Where my style of presentation or the way that I coach is more dynamic and more authentic, kind of like how me and you are having a conversation. This is what I help people achieve. I'm not like, hey guys, today I'm going to talk about Perception Engine. Like it doesn't seem like I just talk, right? And what's really fascinating is you go to someone like this and they teach you their style of what they think should be the form of communication. But in reality, if we really want to hyper-focus communication and we really want to make communication effective, what we can do is understand how certain behaviors are perceived and then build the perception or build the training or how you interact with someone around those perceptions. So Perception Engine will allow me to take an executive or somebody who's struggling at work for various social skills, take their video samples, put it out in the aggregate in their specific demographic and find out exactly how people that they would likely to be working with are going to be perceived. And it's just, we don't get that level of feedback ever because most of the feedback is, it's biased and people don't know how to do it and so on and so forth. But this is like the raw reality of how people are perceiving you. So I'm really, really, really excited about this. I started mapping out the data structure for it. It's going to be an ongoing thing. It's going to cost a considerable amount of money to actually do these studies because I'll have to pay people and so on and so forth. But like over the next 3 or 4 years, the data set that we have enriched with this level of perception data is just going to be so freaking cool to look at the themes and trends in human behaviors at that sort of scale. So I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be talking about it quite often. And you're going to see like powered by Perception Engine, like a cool like graphic or something like that. But yeah, that's what I want to talk about in the blog today. Spent a lot of time on this, just mapping it out, and so excited to share it with you. For my random ending today, what do I want to talk about randomly today? So in my last video, I was talking about moving to Austin. We actually had a little bit of a shift. I'm actually going to keep my place in Vegas and also have a place in Austin. So, because I have to be in Vegas so much, it's probably going to make sense. So I'll be back and forth between Vegas, Austin, and some bunch of other traveling. But I think the headquarters of the Non-Verbal Group, we're going to have a physical location. I don't know where it's going to be yet, but I think the two biggest likely contenders are Austin's probably number 1 and Vegas is probably number 2. I can't think of any place else that I'd want to have as a centralized location, but we're going to build out a facility that's going to have a lot of different camera setups and all these things to record and sort of aid in what we're trying to do. So that's about it. Comment, like, subscribe, ask me questions, do whatever the hell you want. I'll talk to you later.